Hello and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. I'm Conor. That's Albert Breer, and I guess you could consider this our Giants emergency episode.
Yeah.
The Titans don't get.
I guess
this
it
when they
wasn't
fire a
that
head
big an
coach.
emergency because it's Wednesday, but here we are.
The Titans don't get this. Let's just say this. This is one of the blue blood NFL programs that, the owner goes through great lengths to not make head coaching changes, especially after the last three have gone 2-0 prior to Brian Daboll. And yet we have an in-season firing here. Daboll let go of 4 fourth quarter leads of 10 points or more. Jackson Dart has been in and out of the medical tent by way of usage. And I feel like the team just decided, hey, we can't do this anymore. I think they also wanted to get a look at Mike Kafka, and we'll start there, Albert. I mean, what is your sense of why the Giants decided to make this move now? I have an idea of what they might be looking for, but this is still.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all knew he was going to go at the end of the year, but this still represents a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's like the definition of insanity, right? Like it's doing the same thing over and over again. It's
right.
I mean, this is the third straight year. It kind of like caught me off guard, but this is the third straight year they're 2-8 after 10 games, which I didn't realize that until somebody pointed it out to me. And I think the way they're losing the games too, and it's the inability to build any sort of momentum. It's been almost 2 years since they've won consecutive games, which, is obvious. Not a great sign. Yeah, it was like right around Thanksgiving of 2023, the last time they won consecutive games. And then I think it's the inexplicable losses, right? Like it's the okay, like we've got things on track now, and I'm pulling it up because I don't have it right in front of me, but it's all right, like, we didn't start great, but now we beat the Chargers, right? Like that was a huge win, and it looked like that's like the Jackson Dart coming out party. And then they lose to the Saints the next week, right? Like, and then they come back off of that, and they have, Kim Scatterbo and Jackson Dart ripping their shirts off with Fitz on the set. And it looks like, okay, like they beat the Eagles now. So now's the point where they're going to build momentum, and they come off of that. And you have the Broncos game, where they blow, what was it, an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter. It's just like this inability to build any sort of momentum and get untracked. It's the same things happening over and over again. And I think, being up by 10 points in Chicago with, what was it, like 6:15 to go when Chicago got the ball, and just having that inability to finish that one off, taking nothing away from the Bears, but as good as they've been, I don't think we're talking about the Chiefs here, I think it just kind of got to the point for them where it was like, these things keep happening. And like, for better or worse, I feel like they felt like they had given Brian Daboll enough shots to wrestle his way out of it. And so, what this allows them to do now is spend 2 months out in the open. They don't need to hide it from anybody. Start doing their research on where they're going to be going. In the meantime, they get to take a look at Mike Kafka. And I thought this was interesting too, and we didn't get into the Joe Schoen part about this.
Right.
But I thought this was interesting. So Joe Schoen was in Miami in 2015. Do you know who the interim coach was there that year?
Dan Campbell?
Yep. Dan Campbell. And by the end of the year, you know who his coordinators were?
Oh, God, that's a long time ago. No. Who were they?
Zach Taylor and Lou Anarumo. So, I think one of the things that helps Kafka here is Joe Schoen's experience, right? Like in that, he went through that in 15, and I think there was support in the building to keep Dan Campbell as the head coach, and they didn't wind up doing it. They wound up going to Adam Gase instead. But I think that's at least like one of these things in the background where you look at it and say, like, let's give Mike Kafka like a real shot at it. And is the likelihood he's going to be the coach in 2026? No. But, like, let's at least give him the runway to see what he can be, because there were a lot of other teams that have interviewed him over the last couple of years that thought a lot of him. And he certainly has a stamp of approval of Andy Reid. There were a couple of years at the end there with Eric Bieniemy where I think Andy Reid was sort of nudging Eric Bieniemy and hoping that he got a job so they wouldn't wind up losing Kafka the way they did.
Yeah. And it's when you talk to people around the league, I mean, Kafka's name, there's some people that don't think he's ready or that don't think he's necessarily like a head coaching candidate. Yeah. There's some people who swear by him and are amazed that he hasn't gotten a shot yet. And here's his chance. He's already reshaping the roster in one way. I mean, it looks like Jameis Winston's going to be the backup, which like why?
Which at least amps up the entertainment value.
Also, like, why didn't that happen before? Like, Brian Daboll.
I think this is part of the problem with acquiring Russell Wilson in the beginning, in the first place, don't you?
I suppose.
I honestly think it's like having to tiptoe around these things, right? Like, I felt like when they signed Jameis and when they signed Jameis and they signed Russ, it was sort of like, I'm not positive that Russ is the better option, but they felt like obligated to give Russ and I think that was a mistake, right? Like, instead of opening it up and letting Jameis compete for that, which like maybe Russ doesn't sign with you, but what other options did he have?
Right.
I think having Russell Wilson forces you to tiptoe around so many of these things,
Right.
That's not, and like a lot of that's not Russ's fault, but like I do think there's an element of that where you're tiptoeing around all of it. And so, it's like, okay, like, well, if we're going to Jacksonville, we can't completely embarrass Russell Wilson and make him the third string guy. So let's just keep him as the backup. I think that's sort of how you get there,
Yeah. I mean, it's also, it's like the equivalent. This would be like the interim head coach equivalent of removing the ping pong table, right? It's just like, okay, well, it'll be a popular move, I would imagine. Like Russ,
no more cornhole in the locker room.
No more cornhole. God love Russ, but I think we all know that he's an acquired taste personally. And I think especially in situations where time and time again this year, I mean, whether it was getting stonewalled at the goal line, whether it was being so bad in the red zone that Brian Daboll opted to kick like a 19-yard field goal last week, which may have ultimately been his undoing, right? That was a reflection of how little faith he had in Russell Wilson. And so I think even if you just throw Jameis in there and he lets it rip and okay, you have a situation where you surprise somebody and you come out with a win or two that you don't. I mean, you're ending the year on much better vibes than you started the year with. And I think that was such an easy, like, okay, yep, I'm going to do this real quick. And then I'm immediately going to ingratiate myself to the locker room.
Right. And I think that could work to spark them a little bit. And, look, like the interesting thing about the Giants is I don't think they're devoid of talent. So I think and look, like the loss of Neighbors hurt, of course, right? The loss of Scatterbo hurts, of course. But like, I don't think they're devoid of talent to the point where they couldn't pop a team or two. You know what I mean? Like, they play New England a week from Sunday. Could they win that game? Sure. You know what I mean? Like, so I think they're I think they have, maybe it's 2 weeks from Sunday, whatever it is, but they have I think that there is talent on that roster. And I actually think that's why this becomes a really good job too.
I think, and so I did kind of a quick canvas when I put out my candidates list, and we'll get to that in a second. But if you look at what's open and what's probably going to open, okay? And so that's what we have right now. We have Tennessee, we have the Giants. Those jobs are currently, I guess, in theory, open. The Dolphins just fired their general manager. And in order to get a good general manager coming in, you're probably going to have to give him the option to get a new head coach, regardless of how Mike McDaniel finishes the season. You would assume that's open. And then some of the other thorny situations that you're looking at around the league are probably Arizona, Atlanta, and Cleveland to some degree. I think it'll be some mixture of those teams that will have an open. Vegas, because Pete Carroll is on a shorter than normal contract. It's not going to cost you a lot to move on from him. That's certainly an option. You have to look at something like that there. So when you take all the totality of all those, I don't think it's close. If you have Jackson Dart back next year, healthy and you have a healthy Cam Scatabo and you have a high draft pick with which you can get another offensive lineman in there, it's a good job and probably is the best job by a comfortable margin.
Right. I mean, like I've been like, I've taken the cheese the last couple of years, so I'm probably biased here on the Giants, right? Like, but I felt like generally teams that are good at the lines of scrimmage are capable of staying in every game. And, I look at like where they're at, like with, with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and Abdul Carter on their defensive front. We'll see what happens with Thibodeau. They've got some, good veteran players they acquire for their secondary and Holland and Adebo. Like on the offensive side of the ball, like Neighbors, Andrew Thomas. Well, again, Scatabo is kind of like a fun guy to watch. I don't know if he's like a real cornerstone.
Yeah.
And then you have Dart, and like, so you look at it and it's like, that's a team that could jump pretty quickly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a team that, like, you bring in the right GM, you've got some room to operate from a cap standpoint. And, and it's like the Eagles are great, right? Like, but I think you've got a chance to make a move in the NFC East if you can get this one right. And the problem is the Giants just haven't gotten it right. Like, the interesting thing to think about too is the last time they got a head coaching hire right was in 2004. I mean, it's true though, right?
Yeah.
That's undeniable at this point, which is makes me feel old, but a generation ago. You're probably in like high school or something.
Oh God, when they hired Tom Coughlin, I was a junior in high school. Yeah.
I knew it. I shouldn't have even brought that up. I walked right into that.
Have you been looking for a natural way to relieve aches and discomfort? The CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp are formulated to work with your body, not against it. Guys, on a busy Sunday night football, you're writing, you're podcasting, you're taking down notes, you're helping with the kids. I'm wired after these games, but the Cornbread gummies are perfect for just, helping me chill out, getting myself into a good headspace and getting to bed, sleeping through the night. My sleep has been just so much better since I've started taking these. Cornbread Hemp CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress, discomfort, or just needing a little relaxation. They only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD. Right now, MMQB listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/MMQB. Use code MMQB at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/MMQB. Use code MMQB. You brought up the fact that this could be a quick turnaround. And I think it's a matter of perception. And that's probably why Joe Schoen gets to stay and why Joe Schoen gets to make this move. So let's look at the top, rounds 1 through 3, what he's given the team to this point. We have Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Azudu, Cordell Flott, Deontay Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Jalen Hyatt, Malik Neighbors, Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips, Abdul Carter, Jackson Dart, Darius Alexander. And then you can throw Kim Scatabo in there as a 4th-round pick. Some Dart, in theory, looks like a hit. It looks like a smart pick because he got ahead of a bad quarterback class this year and I think secured the guy. My issue is there's an awful lot of misses to contend with there too. I mean,
Evan Neal is a huge miss, and not that people were out there saying like that was a bad pick when it happened.
I love the pick at the time.
I think most people loved the pick at the time, right? Like, but that's a massive swing and a miss. Jalen Hyatt was definitely overdrafted. I like John Michael Schmitz, I guess, is a good one. He's a starter. How many starters do they have in that group?
I mean, John Michael Schmitz is a starter in theory. I mean, Tyler Nubin is a starter in theory.
Right.
Andrew Phillips is a starter in theory.
So you're saying like they're only starters because of the state of the positions on the roster.
This is just not a deep roster. I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree. I would agree. And like, that's where I say like the building blocks that you have, are major building blocks, so like to me, it's like a lot of the premium positions, your number one receiver, your left tackle, your quarterback, your edge rushers, like for the most part, like what you have to acquire at this point is not like, I wouldn't say just strictly role players because you do need starters, but there are positions that you can fill in like veteran free agency or through trades or later in the draft, you know? So like, I feel like they're a position like, I think there are some teams when you look at it and it's like Cleveland, for example, right? So Cleveland right now doesn't have a quarterback. They don't have a number one receiver. They don't have a left tackle, unless DeJuan Jones becomes that, which he hasn't been. He's been hurt. So like Cleveland's got to find a way to fill those three spots. Can you do that in one off season? Right? Like you probably can't. Like it would really be hard to. Whereas like when you look at the Giants, like, can you find a guard? Can you find a off-ball linebacker? Can you find a safety? You can find those things. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I'm saying, like, I think like their roster definitely has holes, and I think you can definitely point the finger at Joe Schoen. I think the counter argument to it is that like a lot of the big things are taken care of now, and the smaller things are what they need to focus on. I also think like the other piece to this, and I mean, look, like I've gotten lambasted on social media for it. I'll get lambasted again, I'm sure, when people hear me say this, but like that franchise was really playing from behind. Just in their methods and the way they did things. And Joe was a huge part of coming in and completely revamping who they are, what they are as a franchise, right? Like, and so their scouting systems, their analytics, the way they use data, both in scouting and coaching, getting everything under one umbrella, so everybody's working under one system. This is stuff that fans don't give a crap. And I don't blame you, by the way. Like if you're a Giants fan,
no, it's important.
And you're hearing me say this, and you're sitting in your car, and I'm making you want to throw your phone out the window, like don't blame me at all. You know what I mean? Like, but those are real things. You know what I mean? Like so, and so I think that there's that part of it too, where it's like, that's part of like what helped Elliott Wolf survive in New England, is that they had been way behind in doing a lot of things there. And he had like begun to modernize a lot of things on the personnel side for them. And they didn't want to throw all of that out. And then they found, like, oh, well, wait a minute. Like this can be a good marriage between him and Mike Vrabel. Same thing in Denver. Denver, I think that was part of it in Denver. They were a little older school as well. And so, George Payton comes in and updates some things and sort of modernizes some things. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, we're going to bring in Sean Payton. They find a way to make those two work together. Now that looks pretty good, so
right.
Like we've seen it before, but I'm with you. Like the track record right now, just based on the draft classes and all of that, like it doesn't look great. Would you have fired him?
So and you can play this game in perpetuity, right?
Yeah.
But what kind of situation would we have on our hands, let's say, in 2022, if the Giants, instead of Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, had Drake London and Charles Cross on that team?
Right.
And instead of Wan'Dale Robinson, you have Trey McBride, who went a couple picks later, or Cam Jurgens, who went a couple picks later.
I'm okay with playing that game in the first round. I think when
Nick
we get
Bonito,
to the third round,
James Cook.
You know what I'm saying though. Like
I do.
I'm okay. Like I think playing that game is fine in the first round because we all know who the names are, and it's their job to figure out who's the greatest of the great prospects, right? I think when we get to the second and third round and you start cherry picking names, that's a little bit tougher, because they're like it's just the percentages are different when you get to that range of the draft. So I think like a lot of people could look at their fourth round pick in 2021 and say like, well, why didn't we get Amon-Ra St. Brown? You know what I mean? Like, well, like there was only one of those in that draft. You know what I mean?
Fair.
Yeah.
And so there are some of those where it's tough, right? and the first round there, you could certainly say, but the misses on both Thibodeau, who doesn't seem
Yes.
like he's contributing a lot on the
And there were
emotional.
flags on him too. So
Right.
like
And
that,
it's not like that was an easy that was just a clean
like
sheet that they
everyone
had.
would take him. Yeah, it wasn't that with
Right.
him for sure. That's one you can definitely point to and say, like, and like for regardless of like what you think of Thibodeau, the reality is like 2 years later, they're drafting a guy in Abdul Carter who's probably already passed him. 3 years later, they're drafting a guy who's probably already passed him as a player.
And so you can play those games as much as you want. I mean, it looks like the Carter and Jackson Dart class could be transformative. And I can bellyache all I want, and I have, about Woody Johnson firing Joe Douglas. And I thought Joe Douglas did a good
Yeah.
job. So I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth and say that I don't think Joe Schoen deserves another shot, because as bad as some of his classes were, there are some that I think that could, set this franchise up. And listen, we don't know what some of these guys look like yet. With a different coaching staff. I think the defensive side of the ball was an absolute mess this year. And I don't think we're going to talk nearly enough about that, because, my God, you look at this Giants schedule, right? So, okay, they start 0-1. They were always going to lose that game to the Commanders. Let's say you closed out that game in Dallas and you were 1-1, and then you were 1-2, losing to the Chiefs. You were 2-2. You beat the Chargers. Let's say you beat the New Orleans Saints. You're 3-2. Then you beat the Eagles. You're 4-2. You hold on in Denver. You're 5. Like, Albert, this team's 5-2.
Right. And then you take one on the chin against Philly, but that doesn't mean as much.
San Francisco 5-4. You hold on against Dallas or Chicago. You're 6-4 going into this Packers game.
That to me is what cost Daboll his job, right? Yeah. That's crazy. What cost Daboll his job, is like, it's just, how many times can you say we're close? Just stick with us. They eventually gets to the point where you can't. And I think Daboll is like a good coach who I think he could be successful if he gets another shot. You know what I mean? Like, I do. Like, I'm not out on Brian Daboll that way.
No,
but like, I also understand like ownership looking at this and saying like, yeah, there's no way that we can trust that this is going to result in some sort of great conclusion when we went through the exact same thing the last 2 years.
Choosing work boots used to mean sacrificing comfort or durability. If they felt good, they didn't last. And if they lasted, they wrecked your feet. Brunt thought that was BS, so they built tough boots that feel great from day one. No break-in, no sore feet, because people out there doing real work shouldn't have to choose between comfort and durability. Now, I got the Marin boots, and not only do they look great, like I've worn them to church, I've worn them out on the town, I've worn them out to dinner, and I've also worn them in the yard when I'm raking leaves, when I'm fixing my wall, doing a little bit of stonework, whatever it is. These are no doubt the most comfortable work boots I've ever worn, and they're built to perform. Whether you need waterproof, safety toe, soft toe, pull-on, lace-up, they've got options that can handle whatever job site you're walking into. And Brunt stands behind what they make. You can wear them to work, and if they're not right for you, send them back. I don't know any other brand doing that. That's a company that believes in their product. Brunt isn't just about work boots. They offer a full range of high-performance gear built for tough jobs, from heavy-duty work pants to weather-resistant jackets. Brunt designs durable, reliable workwear to keep you protected and productive in any condition. Brunt was tired of the workwear brands out there cutting corners. You work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that don't hold up, so they built something better. Boots that are insanely comfortable and built for any job site. And for a limited time, our listeners can get $10 off at Brunt when you use code MMQB at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com and use the code MMQB, and you're good to go. And after you order, they'll ask where you heard about Brunt. Do us a favor and tell them it was from this show. Let's get to candidates, because I think that this is
I got to pull up the old Conor or candidate list then.
Yeehaw! So made a couple calls right in the immediate aftermath of that. And it's funny, right? Because we've done this 3 times this year if you count the GM search in Miami, where all of a sudden something happens and then you start reaching out and you're like, okay, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And yeah, and so I think that this is going to be a wide search. I think initially with the Giants, though,
Yeah.
you're going to lean toward familiarity in one way or another. And that could be
See, would you though if you were them? Because that had been their problem forever, right?
yes.
So,
But then that was the line of thinking that got you Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll in the
right.
first place. Is we're going to cast a wide
Wait a
net. We're
minute,
going to get
Joe.
out of here. We're gonna change our formula. And I don't know how they're feeling about that necessarily. And so on one side, you have the Steve Spagnuolos of the world who have been an interim head coach, are beloved there. You won a Super Bowl with the Giants. And you have Antonio Pierce, who, and that name was put on my plate. These are not, these are not guys that I'm saying are going to be good Giants head coaches. But doesn't his job with the Raiders look a little bit better now that Pete Carroll and Tom Brady and Chip Kelly and Geno Smith are effing the same thing up over there, right? I mean,
right.
I don't think it looks as bad necessarily as it was. And they love Antonio Pierce there. On the flip side, one person that I talked to in the coaching industry said that this is going to be the strangest head coaching cycle in a long time, because what do we not have a lot of? Very obvious, offensive minded play calling coordinators ready to make the leap.
So I did this exercise on 2 different shows yesterday. So I feel like every year there's like 1 or 2 guys where you can say, yeah, he's getting a job. Like, I don't know how many jobs are going to be open. I don't know what jobs are going to be open, but that guy's getting a job, right?
Right.
I think there were 2 last year. Like, I think Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel were both in that category, right?
Yep.
But where we could say, like, I don't know where he's going. I don't know how it's going to happen, but he's going to be a head coach, right? I couldn't think of one this year. Is there one where you say like, where you could say like that guy's a lock?
No, there's not, and it's not just this time of year. I think it's just very generally like, Clint Kubiak, for example, is an explosive play hunting coach with a great lineage. Is he going to be able to walk in to an interview and absolutely shake the tree down and make an owner say, here, take my money? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. And so the reason that I bring that up, I mean, Kubiak, would you disagree, is probably in terms of your like hot coordinator archetype, because the Commanders are having a down season and Cliff Kingsbury is going to be selective about his next head coaching venture, that you would say that it's probably Kubiak in terms of like all the fan base is saying, I want that guy because I want my offense to look like that.
Yeah, I think that's, I just don't know that he's at that point yet.
I agree.
But like I like Clint a lot. Like Clint's one of these guys too. Like he's like his dad. He's a very understated personality. Like this won't be Dan Campbell coming in, He's very comfortable in his own skin. He's a very good football coach. Like what I appreciate most about him is like he is a guy who will go back and look at like his mistakes and clean them up, and like he's humble that way. Like I think after what happened in New Orleans last year, he took a really hard look in the mirror at himself and like, okay, like what went wrong here? And I think he's applied like the lessons to Seattle. Those are all great things, But if you're looking for somebody who's going to come in and kick the door down and win the interview, that's probably not him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so you have to be kind of like comfortable with his personality, which is a little bit more understated. And again, his dad won that way, so it's not like, it's not like something like, oh yeah, like, this is unnatural or weird. It's just who he is. Hafley's interesting. Like Jeff Hafley in Green Bay, I think is an interesting name. If they continue to play well defensively, I think team success plays into that. But the one thing I would say about like this in general, that I think is important, at least as I see it, I think it's really important to look at the Giants' past history. Like, so my understanding is they're going to look into every bucket on this, right? Like they're not, and like, so I think part of that is like they've struck out with just about everything. They had the young, rising, offensive-minded, quarterback-centric coach, and Ben McAdoo fired him. They brought in the retread, like guy with quarterback background, experienced, will have learned from his lessons, mature. Pat Shermer fired him after 2 years. Brought in like the proverbial program leader, like the CEO, like, okay, like this is the special teams coach who has his hands in all facets of the team, fired him in 2 years.
Right.
Then they go back to the offensive well with Daboll, and that doesn't work. So like I think the idea here isn't just like, okay, like let's figure out like what type of coach usually works out and then go there. I think it's let's cast a wide net and find the right guy and the right fit for us. And you know, I don't know. I mean, like their greatest success in the Mariners' defense, their greatest success did come with guys that they knew. You know, Tom Coughlin and Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was promoted from within. And then Tom Coughlin had been an assistant under Parcells, went to become the coach at BC, went to become the coach at Jacksonville, then came back. So, you know, I don't know if there's a name out there. I mean, Spags would probably be the closest to that, right?
Right. But Jeff Hafley is an interesting one that you bring up because where did Jeff Hafley coach before he came to Green Bay?
Was it Boston College?
And where does like 90% of the Giants building, where did 90% of the people
Boston
who work
College.
there go to college?
Boston College.
Where did Tom Coughlin come from?
I have friends who went to Boston College. I'm from up here that know the Maras because of Boston College for sure.
Yeah. And so there's certainly a connection there. I think that Mike Elko got put on my radar, which is interesting because Mike Elko is the head coach at Texas A&M and Marcus Freeman too. The Giants have a lot of Notre Dame ties. I think they have a lot of Notre Dame people in high positions there too. So I think that Marcus Freeman is someone that they're going to look at. But Mike Elko is interesting because where was Mike Elko before Texas A&M? Do you remember? He was the head coach at Duke, right? And he followed I don't know if it was a firing or a retirement or whatever, but it was David Cutcliffe, who coached not only Daniel Jones,
but Eli Manning.
Manning and Peyton Manning. And so I think that there's a lot of there. So I think this is going to be an interesting search. If I had to say, I think it's going to be boiled down to, like you said, I think Hafley is a name to watch very early. I think Spagnuolo is certainly a name if he can come in with a good offensive coordinator and a plan on that side of the ball. But I wouldn't be surprised if this team swings for the fences. College coaches are back. I just don't think that anybody has any choice, Albert, because the cupboard, like we said, it's dry. And so
would the lane train be pulling into?
I cannot imagine somebody just being less of the Mara's thing than Lane Kiffin.
I can't.
That's not a reason not to hire him.
I can't either. I can't think of anybody who would be like less of a fit for the way that organization carries itself. But he's a really good coach. Like, really and he does know your quarterback, of course. And you know, he has been through a lot. Like, I don't know. I mean, like I look at those guys. You know, then like. I love the idea of Flores there, but is that too like so? Flores has got Belichick background, so did Daboll and Judge. Like, can you not do it again? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. Or you just hire Belichick himself and say,
well, so I want to get to that in 1 second.
Or Saban.
Or Nick Saban, yeah. I would be remiss to say that I can imagine Lou Anarumo also being a leader in the clubhouse in this. And Lou was on my list. Lou's son works there as a pro scout. He's a Staten Island guy. He's a Northeast guy. The Giants really liked him the last time when they hired Brian Daboll. He goes from scapegoat in Cincinnati to turning around that Colts defense. He might fit that Parcellsian vibe that I think that they may be trying to conjure here. He's a tough guy. He's an acquired taste personally, but he'll have that defense ripping. And I think a lot of that is what the Giants feel like, okay, here's where most of our resources go. And let's say you did that. That would allow you to keep Kafka on as your offensive coordinator, like if it works out in the end, right? And it might not. But you brought up Bill, and like, here's what I said. I put Bill on my list.
Again, like I say, for entertainment purposes, Lane would be awesome. Bill would be incredible for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it would be like 10 Christmases all put together. But I don't think Bill has any shot at this. I think that from a personal standpoint, he's really took a sledgehammer to his own brand, and I think everything that's come out on him since then has made teams wary of going down that road.
Do you hate the idea of Saban?
I don't hate the idea of Saban. No, I don't.
There was a point in the 90s where they almost hired him. I don't know if you know about this because you were, probably playing with like Legos or whatever. But when he was at Michigan State, I remember there was a point where the Giants swooped in and it looked like they were going to hire him from there. And I think part of it had to do with the Giants' ties to Belichick. But so that would have been at some point in the late 90s. You can look it up, but I think they came close to hiring him. It may have been when they hired Fossil. And like, if you talk about somebody setting up a program and somebody who could probably put like a good coach in waiting in place, and stabilize the organization, I mean, it's worth a phone call, I think, right?
I think it's worth a phone call. And can you imagine if Belichick,
at the very least, like maybe like just having a conversation with him about other candidates? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. He knows a lot of these guys. You know what I mean? Like, so
he does. He's up on this, and
but
to say that he's not,
like, then I mean, Daboll and Judge were also both Saban guys. They weren't just Belichick guys. They were also both Saban guys. So,
could you imagine if Belichick pulled a Chip Kelly and came to the Giants as Nick Saban's defensive coordinator?
That would be great. That would be, again, for entertainment purposes, that'd be lovely.
I would think about quitting my job and just covering the Giants for like a made up, like I would make up a website and just get a credential and cover the Giants every day. I really might.
You think Hamlin would sign off on it? Is Hamlin a big oar guy?
I love Pat. Pat is the Giants director of communications, a legend around the league, one of the true greats. And I'd have to butter him up a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Or football.com would be a tough sell, I think, in this modern media landscape. But then again, these teams will credential anybody. Sometimes you'll see it.
Some do, some don't.
Some do, some don't. That's true. So that's kind of where we're at on this, Albert. It's just, it's very early on in the process, but I do think they'll cast a wide net. I do think Marcus Freeman is a name that I would watch. I do think that he would leave Notre Dame. I don't think that he's necessarily cemented there, even though they love him and they think that he's doing a really good job. They were kind of second place in the Matt Rule sweepstakes the last time he came out and went to Carolina. So there's that to keep in mind. That was something that nearly happened. I don't think that's out of their range of curiosity at this point to bring in a college head coach. But regardless, we'll see how Mike Kafka does here. I mean, he's got a little runway. Anything can happen. And especially if you're going to keep a GM. And I should mention also that a rising young assistant coach who was very popular when Joe Schoen was an executive in Miami was Vance Joseph. So that's just something to put on. And the Broncos came back and, ended up waxing the Giants in Denver. They had got a front row seat to that, as well as Broncos offensive coordinator, even though he doesn't call plays, is Davis Webb, another guy who was drafted by the Giants. So someone they know well there. Now, might be a little early for Davis. I think he would be the youngest head coach in NFL history if he was hired this year. But
how about Belichick with Davis Webb as the offensive coordinator and coach in waiting? You like that?
I do like that. I mean, the last time the Giants did a coach in waiting, it was Ben McAdoo. It was not a good situation, and it was not popular. And Tom Coughlin always did the thing where, and you and I made this joke forever, when Ben got the job, kept coming in and using the elliptical, even though his key card had long expired. So you set yourself up for a situation like that if that's the route that you choose. Before we get out of here, we're doing something. So. Obviously it's Sports Illustrated. We are a subsidiary of the Sports Illustrated print magazine, which, guys, if you're not subscribed to it, you need to be. And when there's an NFL story in the mag, we're going to talk about it a little bit, just to kind of motivate you guys to go out, seek it out, find it on bookshelves, bookstores, Barnes and Noble. I still have a tobacco shop around the corner from my house that has like, yeah, tobacco shop that has like 10 copies every Thursday when it hits newsstands. And I love that. I go, I mean, I get it. I'm obviously a subscriber to SI. Don from the plant is a legend and will send me copies whenever I need it. But I'll always go and buy 3 from the tobacco shop because I'm like, God bless you for still stocking. Like he's got the big thing of the New York Times and the Bergen Record and the Star Ledger when it used to be in print. And he's got, GQ and Esquire and Sports Illustrated. And like, I'm never going to stop doing that. So I love that. This month's cover story is on the Special Teams Revolution. Great headline from our brain trust there. Kickbait is what's on the cover, and the photo is of that monumental.
It's a good headline.
It's a great headline. That monumental kick block that was returned for a touchdown in Philly, and I wanted to. I'll bridge the gap between the two discussions with this because one name that I almost put on the Giants head coaching list, and I didn't, and the Giants were the last team to hire a special teams coordinator. But one name that I almost put on the list, and I didn't, but he will be on my head coaching list in my top 25 that comes out in a couple weeks, is Frank Ross from the Houston Texans. And I talked to Frank for this story. And one of the things that Frank and I talked about were the fact that this is a more complex and complicated arena than ever before. And you're seeing the coaches who are excelling at it right away. And those are good coaches, period, right? Like the coaches in Carolina, the coaches in Houston, the coaches in Philly, right? The coaches in Minnesota, guys who were really good at the new special teams format immediately. And that means that it's not just that you're a good special teams coach, but you're good at anticipating, you're good at planning. I think that this could have some pretty large scale ramifications when we're talking about an increase in kick blocks, returns, all that kind of stuff. I mean, special teams is a true third phase right now.
Yep, there's no question. And I'll give the league some credit. They did want to make sure, it wasn't so much that they want to save that area of the game. I don't know that the league office cared that much about it, but I give the special teams coaches themselves credit for being creative and proactive and going after it. And how can we help fix this in a way that's going to appease the league office, the owners, and I think guys like Darren Rizzi and John Fossil and Richard Hightower, Joe Judge before he left the league and went back to college. Like there have been a handful of guys that have been really involved, at a grassroots level. I'm like, okay, how do we fix this? John Harbaugh deserves credit, right? Because he kind of championed the effort of the special teams coaches. And so I think, that's one thing that's so interesting about it too, is you have these guys who are really good football coaches who obviously had a vested interest in the in that area of the game surviving, and making it out the other side. And how do we make these plays competitive and safe? So you've seen the innovation with the extra point. Now you're seeing the innovation with the kickoff. I'm like a huge purist when it comes to that stuff. I think the foot should be in the game. I think that third phase is a important piece of football. So I'm glad to see that, we're seeing a little bit of a renaissance when it comes to plays on that side of the ball.
Roger Goodell said it when he was in London that sometimes when you fix something, you break other stuff in the process, because someone was asking about the increase in blocks and the increase in all that other stuff. But with the NFL, and you hate to give them too much credit for being 3D chess players, but I think that the error in this case is a massive benefit, because kick blocks are good. Kick blocks are really good for the NFL. Punt blocks are great for the NFL. It's amazing to me that they have found a way. I mean, you used to run to the bathroom, right, when an extra point was coming up. You can't anymore. It has such an outstanding impact over the course of the game that you can't miss a play now. And I really do think, to their credit, that is the ultimate victory in all this.
For sure. I agree.
Where do you think this goes? Because it was funny, in talking to a bunch of coaches for this story, they're like, well, the increase in blocks, it's happening in high profile situations. It's not really a total increase. We'll see at the end of the year. It seems like there's going to be an increase. There's going to be an increase in blocks. There's a 75% increase in returns.
Yeah.
We're seeing knuckleball kicks. We're seeing all sorts of stuff. And I think we're going to see more of that in the coming weeks. And I write about that in the story. But where do you think this goes? Because, for example, we're heading into the winter months now. It's freezing cold here. The ball's going to start doing different stuff with a different wind
Right.
and different air. I mean, special teams could come to define the playoffs as
I mean,
well.
that was like one of the things that I think a lot of coaches I talked to, like when they were doing the new kickoff rules, had mentioned was like the skill of being able to put the ball where you want to put it, right? Not just kick it through the end zone, put the ball where you want to put it, and then do it when there's weather. And so, I think the value of a great kicker could be increased as we get closer to the playoffs, as the weather gets worse in certain places. And, like I think teams are going to have to be innovative that are in warmer weather spots. They're going to have to be innovative in preparing their kickers for those things, So that's part of it. And I think that there's like always a cat and mouse game with all of this, but I would say like the bigger impact's probably when we get to the off season. And, does this change the value of certain kickers? Does this change the value of return men? Does this change the value of a draft prospect, right? Like let's say you're a great corner or receiver, and you also bring return value. Can that help to be a tiebreaker now? And who's the first or second corner off the board? I think all of those things. I don't know. I think all of those things are definitely in play, and that makes this story like really rich. And I'm sorry, Conor, I haven't read it yet, but I can't wait to get around to doing that.
Well, it's not online until tomorrow, and that's the same day that it hits newsstands. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not already a subscriber to SI, I can't tell you how good of a deal this is. Like, the deals on this thing are incredible. It's so well worth your time. Every issue is still packed with legitimately the best sports writing that you're going to find around. And so I urge you to check it out. I think it's going to have a major impact on the end of the season. And like the Giants head coaching search, something we're not done talking about. I think this is going to come up time and time again throughout the rest of the season. And with that, Albert, let's bid the audience adieu, and we'll see everybody on Sunday for a packed slate of games. We're going to recap everything Monday morning, and we're right back at it. The grind doesn't stop, baby.